Everything you need is already inside of you. The world would not be what it is without you. When we begin to create change within us, we begin to create change in the world around us. Your journey to becoming your best self as the whole person starts right now.
Hello and welcome to the Become Your Best podcast and webinar series. I'm your host, Vice President here at Rise Up For You, Lauren Sweeney. Today's guest is going to bring a lot of insight on how you can get unstuck and become unstoppable. Michael Unbroken is an award-winning speaker, best-selling author, and advocate for adult survivors of childhood trauma. He is going to talk with us today about how to get unstuck, how to perhaps have some trauma or have something maybe happen to you, as we all do in life, and move through it and persevere. He comes to us today from Denver, Colorado, and he is a podcast host himself and an award-winning speaker and author as well. Michael, we're excited to have you on the show, and welcome.
Thank you so much, my friend. I'm very excited to be here with you today.
I love it. So many people are listening, and we're still knee deep in a 2-year pandemic, and there's a lot happening globally in your own country. We have many people listening from all over the world, and then just even in our own homes. What is a great first step if somebody's listening? They're going, "Yes, that's me. I want to get unstuck. I want to become unstoppable." But Michael, I'm sitting on my couch eating my bonbons. Where do I even begin?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to create a massive amount of discipline in your life. So many people are waiting for the magic pill, for the Disney moment. It ain't happening. Nobody's coming to save you. Whatever that thing is that you want in your life, it's just not going to magic its way into existence. And, it's really easy. And look, I want to be very clear. It's super easy, which I have done this, to play the victim, to blame the world, to look at everything and go, this is your fault, their fault, my parents' fault, community's fault, Obama's fault. Like, it's everybody's fault, but it's not. Your life and where you're at in this moment, that's on you. And I think that's a really hard pill for people to swallow, especially where we live in a society that deems it viable that we can blame other people for the situations we're in. Now, of course, there's things outside of our control. I mean, that would be nonsensical to believe otherwise, but there are things that you can control. And if you are the person sitting on your couch eating bonbons, who the hell else put you in that situation? Nobody, unless somebody has a gun to your head and they're like, sit here and watch Netflix for 9 hours and eat bonbons. That's on you. And one of the reasons why people will not show up in their own life so frequently, and this was my experience, again, trust me, and I get it, because at 25 years old, I was 350 pounds, smoking 2 packs a day, drinking myself to sleep and getting stoned from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. That doesn't happen by accident. But I will promise you this, it takes as much energy to create your life as it does to destroy your life.
I love that. It takes as much energy to create your life as it does to destroy our lives. And I also like that you made it relatable, that you went through it. And I can hear your passion, your conviction, your tenacity in what you're saying, because you did it. You transformed your own life. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that. So if you're listening, I also want to bring a little bit of compassion for you, like bring some self-compassion and get up, right? Get off the couch or get moving from where you're at. What would be a great first step, Michael? Or perhaps what was your first step from going from where you're at, needing to lose a lot of weight, smoking a lot, numbing yourself? How then did you move from that to where you're at today?
Yeah, and I think you're spot on about compassion and empathy, especially for yourself first and foremost. And
Yeah.
that was such a huge catalyst because, look, I do think there is a space in which it's mandatory that you're going to need to push yourself. You're going to need to challenge your narratives. You're going to need to do things you've never done before. And in essence, you're going to have to stop taking it easy on yourself. But there's a very big differentiation between taking it easy on yourself and taking care of yourself. And in that, you've got to have massive clarity. So the first thing, the first step, the very first thing I always think about, one, is acknowledgement. It's everything. You can stand inside of a burning building, but if you don't acknowledge that shit, you're in trouble, right? And so what you do is you sit here and you look at your life and you have to make meaning of the circumstances that are happening in real time. And if your life is not what you want it to be, guess what? That's okay. But if you want something different, you're going to have to create massive change. And that's going to require accountability. That's going to require determination. That's going to require resiliency. But first and foremost, it's going to have to require that you start to at least somewhat create clarity in your life, because with clarity, you have a direction to move towards. One of the reasons why people tend to fail and not find success in the things that they do in their life is because they're in a rudderless boat. They're just sitting there spinning in circles, hoping that the breeze will take them somewhere. And the hard part about life is if you are not in control, if you're not the captain of that ship, trust me, the breeze is going to take you wherever it wants to. And so when you have clarity and you can say, this is where I want to go, this is the thing I want to do, even if it's far fetched. And actually, I'm a proponent of the impossible idea and goal, because when you're moving towards something that is so much bigger than the reality that you have right now, then it drives you in a different way. So if you can have that kind of clarity and then just start with that acknowledgement and look at your life and be like, yes, my life is not what I want.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
I like that idea of the ship moving. Any movement is better than just sitting still. Even I would say if it was movement in the wrong direction. Movement movement begets more movement.
I mean, so in real time, I'm thinking about that and I understand where you're coming from with that. But I also think to myself, if you could just simply take a moment and plot a chart, then the movement that you're making will be to your benefit and not to your detriment. And I get it. I mean, I'm a proponent. Like, action solves all. Action is the cure for every ailment that you have in your life. But action with clarity will move you towards something that you want. And that's been the catalyst, I think, for me, probably more so than anything over the last now almost 11 years since I really started doing this, or stepped into this healing journey, was just looking at my life and said, what do I want? You know, when growing up, we're told you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not capable enough, get in line, put your hand up to ask a question, go to the bathroom when we tell you to, right? Your whole life is programmed for you. And then if you go to college, then that exacerbates it. In the workforce, same thing. Wear the dress clothes, sit at the cubicle. I worked at a corporate job. I worked for a Fortune 10 company when I was 20 years old. And we had our bathroom break time monitored. And it was
Wow.
like, when you don't control your life, other
Yeah.
people do. And so, what I
Yeah.
want you to think about in this is, how are you controlling your life? How are you being the arbiter of your future, of what you want? Because ultimately, like, I don't think it's asinine by any scope of the imagination that you can have the exact life that you want to have, but you're going to have to earn it.
Absolutely. Well, I love that idea of charting the course or taking that reflection time, journaling, some talking with someone, perhaps having a coach or some type of accountability. If we aren't clear on where we want to go, we're sure to hit nowhere. So actually knowing the points. And I like also the visual of charting the course because it implies that you're not going to go from zero to hero, as they say. You're not going to go from, if you're feeling really stuck, setting those baby steps. Would you agree with that, Michael? Or do you think that it's okay? Do you think it's possible to go from super stuck to like unstuck in a day?
I don't think it's sustainable. I think what happens is people are like, I'm going to change my whole life today. And then tomorrow they're doing the same thing they were already doing. And that's because, like, we're creatures of habits. We have learned behaviors. You've got to reprogram yourself effectively. Like, I think about this all the time. Like, I literally reprogram my brain, right? And that took years. I'm still doing it. Like, I think I'll always, to some extent, in some fashion, be doing it because I'm always bringing in more data. I'm bringing in new things. I'm reading, 50 or 60 books a year. I'm going to 5, 7, 10 conferences a year. I'm always learning, always growing, consuming information, data, and trying to propel myself forward. But at the beginning, I rewind 11, 12 years ago, and it was like I would do one thing one day, and then the next day I'd be back to what I was already doing that wasn't bettering my life, and I would be doing that for weeks at a time. And then suddenly I wake up, I go, oh man, go do that thing again. Right. And then it would start creating this snowball effect. And then those time frames in which I wasn't showing up for my life would become shorter and shorter and shorter. So initially I think it's, we're creatures of habits. It's a survival mechanism to some extent to self-soothe, right? It's much easier to not deal with pain than to deal with it. And so we will go to our vices and the things that bring us temporary pleasure for the dopamine hit, while also recognizing the long-term impact of that we put off to the side because we go, right now I need it and it satiates me, not worried about 15 years from now. And with that, one of the things that really started to happen, and I see this happen with my clients too, when I'm coaching them, when we're going through the process, when we're talking about how to create massive change in your life, it like really is baby steps. Like, it's super annoying. I wish it wasn't. I think it's stupid and it sucks and it's unfair, but it really is, because if you come to me and you're 36, 52, 74 years old, right? And you're like, I want to change my life. Well, we got a lot of time to reverse engineer all of that information and data to find out where the causation and correlation is that has led you to continuing to self-sabotage because of the identity that you're tied into from your youth. Well, geez, that's going to take a little bit of time to figure out. And you can step into it. I can sit here with you right now. I can tell you exactly why you behave the way you behave, right? It's any of the 6 basic human needs. We know about this. Toss in a little bit of Maslow's, throw in some Gestalt, boom, here we are. But the thing about that is that doesn't actually benefit you without having a roadmap and a game plan to changing that behavioral pattern. And so that's why when people fall off, I always say, this is a lesson that you learn. Find what part of that has led you to the moment where you reverted, because there was something there that happened. And whether it was being triggered by an experience, or you're like, today's the day I'm just going to let loose, and then that turns into a snowball effect, or whatever it is, there's always a correlation based on your experiences that led you up to this moment that are indicative of why you behave that way. And so when you see people who are quote unquote overnight successes, or they magically switch their life, I don't think that's ever true. And I think, in fact, it's probably 5, 7, 10 years of incredibly hard work. I saw a quote the other day. It was really interesting. It says, people never see you growing, but they always see you when you've grown. And I was like, that's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I also like that you mentioned all different types of personality tests or ways that we could label, or my Myers-Briggs, or et cetera. Yet that doesn't actually help me get unstuck. It might tell me something about me. It might give me a label, which is not always beneficial. But then how do we actually not just be a content consumer, but a content activator? And that's when you mentioned those baby steps. How do we actually do that? Tell me, Michael, when we go to your website or want to know more about you, what will we find there? Talk to us about that.
Well, you're going to find the truth. And I think that that's often difficult for people. And the truth is very simply this, that I believe we all have the ability to be the hero of our own story. But you're going to have to be willing to not only be vulnerable, but ask for help.
Yeah.
And we live in a very odd society where this idea is still permeated in the world, in which asking for help is somehow weak, where it's like, figure it out, do it on your own, man up, woman up, whatever it is that you want to use. And I'm just like, the only time my life has ever changed is when I asked for help. And so you think Unbroken is very simple. I have one mission, and that's to end generational trauma in my lifetime through education and information. And that's so a child doesn't have to have a story like mine. And that comes through giving people tools that I believe, that I know firsthand, not only work, but through my own experiences, through my education, through luckily being able to impact the lives of hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And it's just simply, it's information that's there for you. I tell people all the time, if you just listen to the podcast that I do, that's everything. All the everything I ever have in the arsenal is there for you. And if you want to read books or do coaching or whatever, great. But ultimately, there's an opportunity for you to invest in yourself by being willing to donate your time to your own life. And when you're there and you're seeking and you're looking, there's questions, there's answers, there's blogs, there's podcasts, there's videos, there's everything. But ultimately, it means nothing if you do nothing with it.
Absolutely. I love that. So if you're listening, it's thinkunbroken.com. And also you can find Michael Unbroken on all social media platforms. Well, it's been great to have you on the show today. And I love the insight that you give. Thank you for going first, for you rising up for you and making things happen and using the techniques, the tools, figuring out where you wanted to go. And now it's a ripple and you're able to bless others with the same thing.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate, but that all started with acknowledgement. I looked at my life, I said, this is not what I want, and I've spent the last 11 years creating my life.
Mm.
And we all have the ability to do that. And when you take accountability over your life, over the things that you want, in time, you need to be very patient because this is going to take you about 10 times longer than you anticipate. But in time, you will look back and you will reflect on the journey and you'll be proud of yourself for the effort you put in to be where you are today.
Mm. Absolutely. I love that. And the effort will be well worth it. And I also like that you mentioned it'll be sustainable, the success. And when you do it the right way, when you do it with the end in mind, it'll be sustainable.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Mm, amazing. Thank you for rising up for you and listening today, for jumping on, for thinking, and becoming unbroken and unstoppable yourself. I'm Lauren Sweeney. It's been my pleasure to be your host today. If you would like to get a little golden nugget, you can download our free confidence kit, riseupforyou.com/confidence. We'll see you next time on the show.